A top AI CEO just made the boldest prediction of 2025. We're talking about a complete rewrite of office work, finance, law, tech, consulting. Some say it's fear-mongering. Others say it's already happening. In this episode of the AI Brief, we unpack the real data, the polarized debate, and what this means for you, your job, your future. Listen to the full episode now and stay tuned.
Okay, let's dive straight in. Imagine hearing this warning. And it's not just anyone saying it. We're talking the head of a major AI company, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei.
Right.
He's saying AI might wipe out, get this, up to half of all entry-level white-collar jobs.
Half? Wow.
Yeah, within just the next 1 to 5 years. And he warned that could push unemployment way up, maybe 10%, maybe even 20%.
That's good. That's not holding back, is it? He actually used terms like job apocalypse, white-collar bloodbath, stark language.
Exactly, no sugarcoating. And it just threw gasoline on this already intense fire, didn't it? This whole debate about AI and, your job, your career, the whole economy, really, especially for office jobs.
It really did. It shifted the conversation. And that's what we want to unpack here, right, in this deep dive.
Absolutely. We're going to sift through what the experts, the economists, the industry folks are saying, from the really loud alarm bells to those who are much more, let's say, optimistic. The goal is to help you understand what's actually being argued right now, here in mid-2025. Why now? What are they looking at?
And why it matters. Because it's not just theory anymore, is it? We're seeing companies actually use these tools. And there are maybe some early signs, though people definitely argue about what those signs mean.
Right, so let's start there with those really strong warnings, the Amodei-level predictions. What's the core argument behind that sort of pessimistic view?
Well, the bedrock, the fundamental belief is that this AI, generative AI especially, it's just different. It's moving way faster than anything we've seen before.
Faster than, say, computers or the internet.
That's the argument. They look at that prediction, half of entry-level cognitive jobs gone quick, maybe 10, 20% unemployment, and they see it as frighteningly plausible.
And which jobs are they most worried about?
Think roles heavy on processing information, drafting things, writing basic code, doing analysis, summarizing, stuff common in tech, finance, law, consulting. Fields where AI is getting really, really good at the core tasks.
Okay, but what are they actually pointing to? Like concrete stuff? Because it feels fast. 5 years for that kind of shift is incredibly fast.
Yeah, well, they look at things happening now. For instance, there's that media company CEO. Remember that?
Oh, right. The one who mentioned AI and layoffs.
Exactly. Explicitly said they were going all in on AI, and bam, 21% of the workforce cut, linked directly. That's not subtle.
21%. Yeah, that definitely gets your attention.
It does. And they also point to reports cropping up about hiring freezes, particularly for junior roles in some tech and finance companies.
Okay, freezes.
And then there's this data point that's really buzzing. The unemployment rate for recent U.S. college grads. It jumped quite a bit in early 2025, at around 5.8%.
5.8%. And why is that specific number significant? Is that high historically?
It's the highest it's been in a few years. Yeah, since maybe 2021. So the pessimistic camp connects the dots. They say, look, this is happening just as generative AI is really taking off and becoming accessible.
So they suspect AI is a big part of that jump.
They suspect it's a major factor, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, alongside other things going on in the economy, like uncertainty and so on. But they argue it suggests companies are starting to use AI tools instead of hiring new grads for those entry tasks, kind of shrinking the doorway into those careers.
Are there specific tasks people are seeing automated away already, like on the ground level?
You definitely hear the anecdotes. Things like basic copywriting, maybe drafting simple code blocks, handling those first-level customer support chats, the work that used to be the training ground for junior folks. AI can do a lot of that now.
So given all that, the speed, the potential scale,
Yep.
is the call from this side basically prepare now?
Exactly. That's the core message. If there's even a chance of a 10 or 20% unemployment spike hitting quickly, society is just not ready. So they're pushing for urgent discussions. Social safety nets, huge retraining programs, maybe even debating the pace of AI rollouts. The idea is to get ahead of it before a crisis hits, not scramble afterwards. The urgency comes from that fear of being caught totally flat-footed.
Okay. That paints a pretty sobering picture, but there's another whole group looking at the same world and saying, hold on a second. The optimists, the more moderate voices, what's their take?
Yeah, their starting point is often history. They look back at previous massive tech shifts, think the steam engine, electricity, computer,
Big transformative technologies.
hugely transformative. But they point out that while these things totally reshaped work over, decades, they didn't lead to permanent mass unemployment. New industries popped up, new jobs were created.
So the argument is AI will be disruptive, yes, but more like those past waves, gradual change, adaptation.
That's a big part of it. Evolutionary, not necessarily an overnight jobs apocalypse. And crucially, they lean on the current labor market data.
Okay, what data are they highlighting?
Well, the big one is overall unemployment. As you said, still low, around 4% in the U.S. as of spring 2025. Wage growth is decent. They argue, look, if AI were truly crushing labor demand right now, you'd expect to see much weaker numbers.
That low unemployment number is hard to square with imminent collapse, isn't it?
It is. And they add another interesting piece. The actual share of U.S. jobs in white-collar fields, the ones supposedly most at risk, hasn't shrunk. It's actually ticked up slightly over the last year.
Wait, gone up, even with all this AI adoption?
According to the data they're citing, yes.
Oh, slightly up.
And they even look at specific jobs often flagged as vulnerable, like translators. Official stats show employment there actually grew, up 7% year on year.
Translators grew. That's surprising.
It is. And some studies, like one looking at AI chatbot use in Denmark through 2024, found basically no significant difference in employment or earnings linked to AI across many jobs. It suggests AI might be changing how work gets done.
But not necessarily eliminating the jobs wholesale, at least not yet.
Right. Not on a massive scale so far, according to this view. So they see AI less as a job destroyer and more as a massive productivity booster.
Ah, the productivity argument.
Exactly. Think Goldman Sachs projecting AI could lift global GDP by maybe 7% over 10 years, purely from productivity gains. The idea is that this boost creates wealth, which fuels demand, which in turn creates new kinds of jobs.
What kind of new jobs?
Well, think about building and maintaining all the AI infrastructure. Data centers are huge. Managing AI systems, training them, ensuring they work ethically. Plus, entirely new services and industries we probably can't even imagine yet, enabled by AI. They believe these new areas will soak up displaced workers over time. Jobs get redefined, not just erased.
And what about companies needing talent? Surely they can't just stop hiring young people.
That's another key point for the optimists. Businesses need future leaders. Entry-level roles are where you learn the ropes. They argue companies won't just axe these roles entirely.
So what happens to them?
They'll likely change. Job descriptions will shift. Less focus on the routine stuff AI can do, more focus on uniquely human skills. Critical thinking, creativity, complex communication, strategy. AI becomes a tool to augment the entry-level worker, making them more productive faster, handling the grunt work so they can focus higher up.
Augmentation, not just replacement. And this view, we tend to hear it from established economists, think tanks, big financial institutions.
Yes, often. People like academic economists who study labor markets long-term, or think tanks looking at economic policy, and leaders in finance like, say, Larry Fink at BlackRock. They tend to stress the economy's historical adaptability and the growth potential while acknowledging transition challenges.
Okay, so we've got the sky is falling camp and the it'll work out over time camp. Is there a middle ground? Someone saying maybe not an apocalypse, but...
There absolutely is, and it's a really important perspective. This group looks at the optimistic view, acknowledges the historical points, sees the current low unemployment. They agree we're not seeing a total collapse right now.
He's always a but.
But they see very specific, very real risks, particularly in the near term, and concentrated in one area.
Let me guess. Entry-level jobs. The broken career ladder idea.
Exactly that. This is the absolute core concern for this cautious middle group. They look at what generative AI is already good at: summarizing things, drafting emails, churning through data, writing basic code.
The stuff junior hires usually do to learn.
Precisely. The tasks where you cut your teeth, prove yourself, learn the basics of the industry, and start climbing. AI is getting remarkably good, remarkably fast at exactly that kind of work.
So the worry isn't necessarily mass unemployment tomorrow, but more like a blockage right at the start of a career.
That's the fear, that companies will look at this and say, okay, the AI can handle a lot of this initial grunt work. We just don't need to hire as many fresh grads.
Which makes it way harder for young people to get that first foot in the door.
Exactly. Harder to get started, harder to gain that foundational experience. It potentially disrupts or even breaks that traditional pathway up.
And that spike in youth unemployment we talked about, the 5.8%, this group sees that as maybe the first smoke signal for this specific problem.
They do, but they tend to be careful about it. They see it as potentially linked to AI displacing some entry-level tasks, especially in early adopter sectors like tech and consulting.
But it's mixed in with everything else going on, economic uncertainty, post-pandemic weirdness.
Exactly. They're quick to point out it's complex. It's really hard right now to say definitively X amount of that 5.8% is only because of AI. There are lots of factors, but it's a worrying sign that aligns with their core concern.
So a trend to watch very closely, but not conclusive proof yet.
Right. They might point to anecdotes, like a big bank CEO mentioning using AI to slow hiring for certain roles, as evidence companies are starting to automate tasks previously done by new hires. But the big picture, the long-term structural impact, they'd say, is still uncertain.
And for this group, is this just a temporary bump or something deeper?
That's the million-dollar question for them. Is it a rough patch for new grads tied to the current economic cycle and early AI adoption? Or is it the beginning of a fundamental shift in how white-collar careers even begin?
And the answer depends on
choices made now. This is key for them. The outcome isn't baked in. It depends on how companies choose to implement AI, how education adapts, what policies are put in place.
Which brings us to their focus on adaptation, right? Rethinking how we prepare people.
Absolutely. There's a strong consensus here on needing proactive steps. Things like radically rethinking education to focus on skills AI doesn't have, creating better, more accessible retraining options, maybe exploring alternative pathways, like more apprenticeships, if that traditional first job route narrows.
It's about how companies use the tech, isn't it? Do they use AI to supercharge their junior staff, let them do more complex work sooner?
Right, augment them.
Or do they just see it as a way to cut costs and reduce headcount at the entry level?
Exactly. And the evidence so far, according to sources looking into this, suggests companies are doing well, both. It varies.
This perspective, you often hear it from labor economists, journalists focused on the workforce, institutions like Brookings maybe, who are really zeroing in on the challenges for young workers specifically.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. The alarms, the optimism, the cautious focus on the career ladder. Is there anything everyone actually agrees on in this whole debate?
Yes. Remarkably, there is one thing that cuts across almost all viewpoints, from the most alarmed to the most sanguine.
Which is?
Preparation, the absolute critical need to prepare for change. It's non-negotiable.
So even the alarming warnings like Amodei's, the point isn't just to scare people.
No, not primarily. The stated goal of warnings like that is often to jolt people, governments, industries, individuals into action, to make them realize the potential scale of disruption isn't trivial, and that planning needs to start now, not later. The consensus is that just waiting to see what happens is the worst strategy. Okay, and what does preparation look like in practice? What are people talking about?
Similar themes come up across the board. Massive efforts in upskilling and reskilling the current workforce.
Sure.
A serious look at education. How do we prepare people for a future where AI is a standard tool?
Right.
Strengthening social safety nets. The specifics get debated, obviously, but there's general agreement that support for people who are displaced needs to be better. And exploring new rules or business practices may be things that encourage using AI to help workers rather than just replace them to save money.
And there's another interesting angle some people bring in here, demographics.
Demographics, how does that play into the AI job debate?
Well, think about it. AI is becoming powerful, right? As many developed countries are facing the opposite problem, labor shortages. Aging populations, lower birth rates.
Fewer working age people.
Exactly. As boomers and older generations retire, there just aren't as many younger people to fill all the roles. Some experts, like Larry Fink you mentioned earlier, argue AI automation could actually be crucial for filling those gaps. So AI might displace some jobs, but fill needs in others, helping offset a labor shortage.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It could automate tasks that might otherwise go undone, helping maintain productivity and living standards, even with a shrinking workforce in some places. So while it might hurt in specific sectors, it could simultaneously be solving a different looming economic problem, potentially keeping overall unemployment from skyrocketing, especially in aging economies.
Fascinating. Okay, so recapping the whole landscape, we have the stark warnings of a fast white-collar job disruption. We have the view grounded in history suggesting slower evolution and new opportunities. And we have that cautious middle focused on the risks to entry-level careers and the need for smart choices now.
Right. It sums up to a moment of wonder and worry, as someone put it. You see the incredible potential productivity, new capabilities, but also the very real potential for disruption and hardship if we don't manage it well.
And the big takeaway seems to be it's not inevitable. The future isn't set in stone here.
Absolutely not. That's maybe the most crucial point. The technology is advancing fast, yes.
Yeah.
But whether that leads to mass displacement or a managed beneficial evolution of work, that really depends on decisions. Choices made by policymakers, by businesses, by educators, by all of us, frankly, starting now.
So the debate's ongoing.
Yeah.
The current big picture stats, like low unemployment, show resilience for now.
But the pace of AI change means nobody can afford to be complacent. These conversations, the ones happening right now, are vital for figuring out how to harness the good parts of AI while actively trying to mitigate the bad.
It's about trying to steer this powerful force intentionally.
Precisely.
So this deep dive hopefully gives you the context for understanding this really pivotal moment, but let's bring it right down to you listening. Here's the thought to chew on. If those traditional entry-level jobs do change fundamentally, if AI takes over many of those first-rung tasks, how does the next generation even get the experience to move up? Or maybe think about it personally. How can you, right now, position yourself so AI becomes your superpower, something that augments what you do, makes you more valuable, instead of something that makes your current tasks obsolete? What are those uniquely human skills, or those skills in collaborating with AI, that will really matter most in the coming years? That's the kind of critical thinking this whole debate forces on all of us.
If you made it this far, you're not just curious, you care. This is just the beginning. AI is moving fast, and if you want to stay ahead of the curve, we've got regular insights, expert breakdowns, and honest conversations, all in under 30 minutes. So go ahead, hit subscribe. The future of work won't wait, and neither should you. If you